slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Hey team, hope you're all doing well. Today's topic I want to go over how to earn a Boston qualifier. Okay, the Boston Marathon is continuing to get much more competitive, as we all know. Recently, the Chicago Marathon just changed their standards in order to qualify for these races. And a lot of runners around the world are trying to get a Boston qualifier. They're trying to get that Boston Marathon qualifying time. And the key thing is if you're trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon, my top recommendation is to make sure that you do the very best you can to not only think more long-term in your preparedness, make sure you're training between 5 to 6 months for your marathon. Don't try to qualify for the Boston Marathon. If you're going to do this right and you want to qualify for the Boston Marathon in less time, do a longer build-up. Okay, don't try to qualify for the Boston Marathon with an 8 to 12 week build training plan. Of course, yes, in most cases you can still get in legitimate shape in 2 to 3 months training for a marathon time or a fast marathon time. And in some cases, some runners actually go out there and still qualify for the Boston Marathon in a 2 to 3 month buildup. But to minimize your failure rate and to increase your success rate, think of a 5 to 6 month buildup as you prepare for your Boston qualifier. My recommendation is to find a race that is flat. Some of the top races I would recommend would be Berlin, Valencia, Frankfurt, the Chicago Marathon, Rotterdam Marathon, Amsterdam Marathon, Paris. A lot of these races around the world are obviously flat, so you want to make sure that you minimize the extent of undulations and hills in the race course that you choose. Again, you want to not only train properly, but you also want to make sure that you find a race that is competitive enough that is going to help set you up for success to get that Boston qualifier. Okay, I personally have never run the Boston Marathon, but I have run a race course that is very similar to Boston, and that's the California International Marathon that's held out in Sacramento. Boston and the sim course are both net downhill courses, but they have a lot of rolling hills on them. Okay, and these courses, like the Boston Marathon, is not a course that is just downhill, just completely downhill. I think it's the St. John's Marathon out in Utah. That's a course that's just straight down for 26.2 miles. If memory serves me right, I believe that is a course like that. Boston is not like that. And again, this is to even compete in the Boston Marathon, you have to get a Boston qualifier. So as I mentioned earlier, make sure you're finding a course that is flat, that's going to set you up for success, a course that is highly competitive, but also make sure that you're doing a longer buildup in any training plan for training for a marathon. You want to make sure that you're not getting into the habit of running slow every single weekend. Okay, I think that a lot of runners run too much of their mileage too aerobically. And again, this isn't the case for every runner. There are some runners out there that can qualify and earn a Boston qualifier with just volume. They just do a high amount of volume. Maybe it's like 70 to 90 miles a week, and they do that for like a 16 to 20 week block, but they don't do any speed. And they go out there and they qualify for the Boston Marathon on just volume, on just aerobic mileage. But there's so many runners out there that could run so much faster if they change up their tactics. And this is not to sway runners that just do volume, because I don't want to change up their tactics and sway them from their success. What they're doing is right. But for a lot of runners, they get in this plateau and they don't feel like they're getting faster, and they feel like they've tried for many years to get a Boston qualifier, when really what it may be is they need to start running their long runs faster. They need to start doing more fartlek sessions, which, for a marathon, if you're training for a Boston Marathon, one of my favorites is running for an hour, running 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy for an hour. Okay, now that is not, you don't do that immediately. It took me several years to get to a point where I could do that. but try to do like 10 minutes of 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, where you're sprinting for, running at sprint paces, or running at, say, like 3K to 5K race pace for 1 minute, and you're jogging for 1 minute, changing up your speed, changing up your interval, your paces. Okay, those types of tactics, doing 1 VO2 max workout a week, or hill training, where you're sprinting all out up a 50 to 100 meter hill, jogging on the way down for your recovery, or walking down on your way down for your recovery, depending on how fit you are. It's doing those types of hard anaerobic workouts that helps marathoners not only sustain race pace, but that helps you to recruit more of those fast twitch muscle fibers that you absolutely need. Okay, the more of those you can recruit, the more efficient you're going to be able to handle higher amounts of lactic acid. Okay, pace sustainment and being able to hold race pace and to not experience hitting a wall in a marathon is one of the most important things you need to be thinking about in order to qualify for the Boston Marathon and get that Boston qualifier that you've been aiming for. Okay, not running a positive split. In most cases, not all cases, runners usually run a new PR by running a negative split. Okay, now there are obviously examples of other runners out there who run a positive split in PR. Okay, when I ran 2:19:35 for the marathon, I went out in 1:07:09 for the first half marathon and came back with a 1:12:26. So obviously I drastically slowed in that second half, but because I went out so fast and because I was still able to hold a reasonably quick second half marathon, I was able to break the 2:20 marathon barrier. Okay, but a lot of runners go out way too aggressive in the first half and pay for it in the second half. Okay, and I've had experiences like that in the past. Example of that is the 2011 BMO Vancouver Marathon. I went out in 1:08 and changed through the first half, and I ended up running 2:40 for the marathon. I finished 10th place in 2:40, but I went out the first half in 1:08. So again, drastically slowed down, okay, especially in the last 10K. I practically walked and jogged the last 10K. So I want you, as you prepare for your Boston Marathon qualifier, to be thinking about how you're going to, pre-plan. Obviously make sure that you're visualizing how you want to run the race, seeing yourself running strong, running aggressive, passing runners, getting across the finish line with that Boston qualifier time that you have in mind on the clock. But also, as I mentioned before, not only thinking about the race that you want to run prior to running Boston, finding a race that's flat, finding a race that's competitive, that's in cool temperatures, okay? Examples of that, not only California International, but I highly recommend the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon, okay? I ran 2:26 there in 2011 for 5th place, and the weather was perfect. Okay, it was like 40 degrees, very cool, light winds, much like the California International Marathon. So again, doing that prior to getting your Boston qualifier is key. Finding a cool, flat race where the weather is good, where the competition is good, you want to do that first. When you're running in these races, run the least amount of distance as possible. Okay, so run your tangents. Okay, your competition may not be thinking about that. Okay, if you see a right-hand turn coming up and you see a lot of runners on the far left-hand side of the road, just remember they're running much more distance than you are because you're on the right-hand side of the road, or vice versa. If you're on the left-hand side of the road and you see a big group of runners on the right-hand side of the road and you know that left-hand turn's coming up, you're doing it right. You're running the least amount of distance, where those runners, they have to run across the road. Okay, so run the tangents in your race as well. Again, you want to make sure, how can I increase my chances of earning this Boston qualifier? Not only with the way I run in my race, the energy expenditure, running a negative split, not only by running the tangents, not only am I going to be taking in more fluid in the race, taking in more calories, putting some gels in my shorts, practicing taking gels, practicing drinking more in my long runs, not running every one of my long runs just super slow, okay? But I'm going to start running some faster efforts, some marathon pace efforts during my long run, okay? That might mean like 3 minutes or 4 miles at marathon goal race pace, running for 3 miles easy, then maybe 3 miles at half marathon goal race pace, then 3 or 4 miles easy, then running 1 mile at like 3K to 5K race pace. okay, and then jogging for a couple miles. You see what I mean? You're changing up your paces. So again, when you get into the race and you're competing against somebody that starts picking up the pace, you'll be able to react to his or her move because, again, you've done that in training, okay? And you're going to be able to sustain your goal marathon race pace, in this case, that Boston Marathon qualifying time that you're aiming for, and earn that Boston qualifier, okay? So I hope this video on, some of the things I want you thinking about in order to get that Boston Marathon qualifying time to become a reality for you has been helpful for you. If you have any other questions, or if you've run the Boston Marathon, feel free to share your thoughts as well on the race in the comment section below. I'd love to hear that, as well as the community that watches these videos would definitely, I'm sure, appreciate your viewpoint as well. So thank you so much for your support. If you're looking to take your racing and training to the next level, definitely check out our resources below all of our videos, as well as on RunDreamAchieve.com. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.